Yeah, so basically the idea that I used in my teaching practice involved the use of Google Docs. Google Docs is basically an online office application offered by Google, which is free to use. The students set up an account, a Google account, regular Google account, and that gives them access to Google Docs. And the advantage of Google Docs is essentially that they can create documents, and those documents are stored online. So they don't have to physically store the files on their computers, on the document space in college. They can access that document from wherever they have internet access, obviously, so in college or at home. And also, an advantage of Google Docs is that they can share that work with the teacher, and that work can then be marked by the teacher online. There's no need to email the work, you have access to the same document, and then the students can basically respond to that feedback, redraft it and resubmit it. The reasons why we brought in Google Docs as a department was basically because we had a number of problems with students working on assignments in and outside of class. So, for example, at the start of the course, film studies course, which I teach, the students have to do a written analysis of a 5-minute film sequence of their choice. They start the assessment in class, they have some time to work on it in class, drafting it in class, but they're also expected to complete the assignment and make improvements to the assignment at home. And this created problems because students were constantly emailing work back and forth to themselves, saving work on memory sticks, which they then perhaps would lose, or they'd find that the software they were working on in college was not compatible with the software they had at home. Some students have, for example, Microsoft Office at home, some students don't. So it was creating a number of problems for us in terms of managing that assessment. So by using Google Docs, the idea was that all students would be able to access the same document in college and at home, and also the teachers would have access to that same document. So that was the basic kind of approach we took. In terms of progressing the project, the first thing we had to do was set up get the students to set up their accounts, which occurred in class. This process didn't take long, took about 5 minutes. Some students already had Google accounts, which meant they had access to the document facility. Once they did that, the first step was then to create a document, which is reasonably straightforward, and then to share that document with the department. So that involved the department setting up our own Google account as well. So as a department, we created our own Reigate Film Studies Google account. The students then shared that document with that account, and we could then organise the students' work into folders. So for example, we could, once the work was shared with us, we could then drag and drop that particular work into a class folder. So say for class 4D, all that work could be dragged into class 4D, so it was organised for us. Obviously that involved the students clearly labelling their work, so we knew who was submitting what, and there was a bit of a kind of administration on our part in terms of setting up the folders. So yeah, we found the technology that Google produced very helpful. The application itself, the Google Doc software itself, is reasonably similar to Microsoft Office, so there's a degree of familiarity there for students and staff. Some of the functions aren't quite the same. It's a little bit more basic than Microsoft Office, but essentially for what we wanted the students to do, which was basically submitting written work, submitting essays, it was fine. And obviously the advantages of being able to look at the document as the students were working on it. So even while the students were typing, we could observe the work, we could give real-time feedback on the work they were producing. The students could see that feedback in real time, was a big advantage for us. We didn't have to worry about students printing off work and then handing it in, emailing it, bringing in memory sticks, saying I've forgotten my memory stick, all this sort of stuff. It made it much easier to manage. The students also appreciate it as well. I think they saw the value of it to them, not just as the value to us to as staff. And they were able to access their work from home and from in college and make changes where appropriate. In terms of the outcomes, There were some teething troubles. I think initially when we trialled the project, some students were perhaps resistant to it. Why are we doing it this way? Why can't we just use Word? I'm used to using Word. There were some inevitable technical glitches as well in terms of using the application. So sometimes, for example, if a student tried to access their work, it wouldn't come up straight away. Some students who at home were using web browsers which were perhaps not the most recent version of, say, Internet Explorer or Firefox or whatever, had some problems in terms of getting their work to come up as it should do. Also, there was a few problems from sort of management perspective as well, from staff. Setting up the accounts took some time. Some students had some problems initially sharing their work. It wouldn't share straight away, for example. But we persevered, and eventually, in terms of the work the students produced, was as good as ever, and managing the process was much easier for us to do as a department, because we could just, we didn't have to worry about carrying around folders full of work. It was all there online. We could offer our own feedback when we wanted to, in college, at home, and obviously the students just need to click onto their document and they can see their feedback straight away. So we started it off, we trialled it 2 years ago for one particular project, and we're now using it across the department. We've also started using it as a way of sharing our own resources with students. So for example, resources that we produce, we can produce them on Google Docs. You can also upload material that's been produced on, say, Microsoft Office, Word, PowerPoint onto Google Docs. The advantages of that, again, are the students don't need to download anything from a VLE. They don't have to physically have the file. You can create a Google Doc that's publicly viewable online, so it's just a click away to a web page. And again, that's made it much easier for the students in terms of accessing materials outside of college. We've massively reduced our photocopying and printing budget, largely because the students can access the materials in class. They can access it at home very easily. There's really no need to print out the amount of materials we're printing out previously, which meant as a department we managed to save a lot of money as well, which as a film department means we can spend it on other things, sort of equipment we're using for filming. So it's made a real difference for us as teachers. Me personally, managing assessments has been much more straightforward, despite some initial teething problems. There are no issues, as I said, in terms of carrying around lots of student files, worrying about students handing in work, students losing work, teachers losing work. It's all there online, instantly accessible. It's just a click away. And for the student learning experience as well, I think it's greatly enhanced their experience in terms of their ability to access their work from wherever. They can access their essay on an iPhone, which most of them have got now, their BlackBerry or whatever. They can edit it in college, they can edit it at home. They don't have to worry about multiple copies of the same assessment flying around, which is the most recent one, which is the one that's got feedback on from the teacher. They don't have to worry about printing the work off. They set up the document, they share it with their teacher, and that's all they need to do, other than obviously complete the piece of work and respond to the feedback when they receive it. Okay?